Good morning, afternoon, evening. I don't know what time it is where you are. You can go ahead and put them in the comments. Hi, everyone. Stacy Casson here, also known as the Clarity Concierge. For those of you who can't see me, I'm a very tan woman with short, wavy salt and pepper hair. I have in clear glasses and a very colorful yellow top, and we will begin the day. Oh, there's a red background and my logo in the corner. That that corner. I'm not good at pointing. Anyway, we're going to begin by taking a deep breath in and exhale. Deep breath in and exhale. Deep breath in and exhale. And just take a moment to be present. Notice how your body is feeling, any thoughts or sensations that. Funny enough, this morning during my journaling, I was trying to listen to myself, and my head has a lot to say. It doesn't stop. So I was just like going through the rest of my body, like, hey, body, you feeling? And my stomach was the first one to come up. It was like, what's for breakfast? So, sometimes you hear answers from interesting parts of yourself. And breakfast was some homemade sourdough crumpets. It's interested. It's pregame because I'm going out with a friend later today. But that was pretty tasty, and some lovely black tea, team tea. I do like coffee as well, so I'm by Liquido, but I'm OG water. But anyway, let's start with our Pokemon for the day. And again, for those who have not joined this before, this is the Ask Me Almost Anything. And I say almost anything because even though I will be using intuitive tools, specifically Pokemon cards, I am not a fortune teller. But I think with the right questions, we can make our own fortunes, make our own luck, and shift our mindset. It's by using play and fun visuals, which I do try my best to describe them. You kind of bypass the gatekeeper in your brain and tap into that subconscious intuitive wisdom that we all have. Start off with the card of the day, and today we have the Grass Energy Pokemon card. This one kind of came back from yesterday as well, not the card of the day, but in other things. It is a green card with a glowing green sphere and a black leaf. And when I think of nature, I think about literally going out in nature, getting like going for a walk, hugging a tree, going to your garden if you're fortunate to have one, smell the flowers. And the color green for me is associated with the heart and ideas about compassion and self care. I'm feeling this is something about nurturing. So, as you go through your day today, what are things you can do to nurture yourself, to nurture others, to pour into yourself that you're overflowing and you can serve on your saucer? I don't remember where that quote is from, but it is not me. And if you Google it enough, you will find the original author of that quote. To pour from the saucer, not the cup. So I'm going to sit with that for a little bit and invite you to do the same just to see if anything comes up. I was challenged by, um, she's a friend. I was challenged by my friend, Michelle Price, who does really wonderful workshops. If you are looking to understand your decision making process, I would absolutely recommend that you check her out. It was really insightful. And she, and as well as many other people, are like, you're always up here in your head. What about the other aspects of your body? So let's try this out today. So when I look at the Grass Energy card, intellectually, I think about going out in nature. Maybe my head, my most literal part of me, but it's also creative part. So it could mean eat green foods, right? That's another way you can look at this, which might be more the gut, but maybe the gut is still like, look, when is brunch? But intellectually, I make these connections. Like, I know because I'm familiar with like the whole chakra system, and this goes in with the heart chakra. But if I really center my heart space, just the more of the feelings, then I can think about what feelings come from thinking about nature or grass or something like that. And it is about nurturing. And funny enough, this morning I was trying to listen to my heart, and I get the sensation that it is actually locked up in a reinforced concrete bunker, and it's screaming hello, and nobody can hear it because it is so sealed away. I'm not proud of that, by the way. But we'll see what happens. I've definitely, I promise, I've been working on that. And for you fellow hardened heart peoples out there, um, we don't need. Oh, what was that group? Is it the Motels? The Harden My Heart song. Anyway, that's, I'm probably dating myself. There's a song, and the lyrics are, I'm gonna harden my heart, I'm gonna swallow my tears, I'm gonna turn and leave you. I have nobody to leave right now. But that is coming up for me when I think about this from my heart. And if something different comes up for you, please feel free to share it in the comments. And then finally, instinctually, what does this card say? When we think about our intuition or our gut, what comes to mind? Like, instinctually for me, it's go for a walk. Go after this live, go walk around your neighborhood. It's an overcast day, but the trees are literally so inviting. I'm really fortunate that where I live, there's a wonderful tree canopy, and I'm so spoiled by it. To other places that don't have this tree cover, it's like, how do you exist like this? So anytime I want to take a walk in my neighborhood, it's always shady. It's always maybe 10 degrees cooler than even the other side of the street. The other side of the street doesn't have as many trees. Such a profound difference. So those are three aspects that come to mind. And then when I think about grass energy from the Pokemon point of view through my body, it's literally laying in the grass. And the last time I did that has been long, honestly, a couple months ago last year, where I lay out some blankets and just lay on the grass, watching nature, watching the clouds. There was a slight breeze, and a literal tactile sensation of being grounded. So, what does that mean to you? Being grounded, being safe, being nurtured. What does that look like from all aspects of your life? Is it what are we feeding our heads? Today, my own personal challenge is watching the words that I'm using, because I am now calling myself a recovering cynic, very cynical. I noticed that in my language, and I don't like that. I this week I've been shown many times where in my brain I jump to the worst case scenario, and I don't say anything, thankfully. But when the truth of the situation is revealed to me, I'm kind of disappointed in myself. So I've been trying to pause more. And again, this was what we've kind of been talking about in other lives, this idea of intellectually seeing words, and you know what the word, but there's a difference between comprehension of those words and putting them together. What does it truly mean to pause and reflect? I could say I'm pausing and reflecting, but if I'm not actually doing it, then there's a gap. There's work to be still. So maybe we'll start off, because I don't see any questions from you, with How do I bridge the gap between knowing and understanding and doing? How do I bridge the gap between knowing something, understanding something, and doing something? So let's ask our friends, what's happening? And we get Simisir. Wow. Okay, I'm making sure I'm looking at this correctly. Okay, this is a fire type monkey. It's a log leaning back, and I'm trying to see what it's doing with its hands. It looks like it might be giving itself a hug, but the background is very Van Gogh. It's or Van Gogh, whatever you want to call it, with some tulips tulips and this really abstract, wonderful flowing background. This is really a gorgeous card. And with a fire energy card, it's kind of a juxtaposition because fire, you think of motion and movement. And when it gets excited, embers rise from head and tail and it gets hot. For some reason, it loves sweets. So again, this Pokemon is leaning on a log and it just looks so relaxed to me from what I would think of when I fire energy Pokemon card. So maybe this is like the idea of a steadily burning flame. Everything around it, there's motion all around this particular Pokemon. And I like that it is also surrounded by flowers, but they're kind of wilted. So it's thinking about where do you want to direct your energy? Anyway, that's what comes to mind for me. Where do you want to direct this fire to become more grounded? And he honestly looks like he's pausing and thinking about maybe looking at it, but that's where that thinking part comes from. And this kind of swirl in the background might be all those thoughts running through one's head about a situation. So that's what's coming to mind for me when I'm thinking about what's happening. And with fire energy, sometimes it flares up. And those might be those ideas or those assumptions that we have flaring up before we get a full idea of the picture. Fire is also something that illuminates. And if we take a pause and reflect, other ideas will come to mind as we continue on this journey. I'm trying to do that right now in this live, is to pause and see what else comes up. Because I'm definitely somebody that in real life, I want to answer you as quickly as possible. And then you're going to get millions of more things because then I think about, oh, what about this? Oh, what about that? So let's go with the challenge on the next. What is this challenge, this gap between knowing something and understanding something? Interesting. A big malasada. I am not sure what a malasada is. It looks like maybe a jam filled donut, and it looks like a bite has been taken out of it. It's a trainer card, and there's this kind of glowing, luminous light around it, which for me ties into that grass energy, and that this malasada is kind of orangey, kind of ties into the energy about the Simisir, and it likes sweets. So I think this is a sweet. We can do a little bit of research to see what a malasada is. So barely, because I've not encountered this one before. And if you know, you can put it in the comments because I do have some Pokemon aficionados. Okay, so a malasada is a fried donut. Okay, So that's cool. That makes sense. And that's kind of cool that it comes up right after learning that Simisear likes sweets. So I think it's kind of with this donut, it has a filling. And perhaps it is that we look at the surface and don't recognize the filling. And when you bite into the donut and experience all of that together, that is where you start to understand. It's the difference between the concept of a donut. I can tell you a donut is a fried bread. Sometimes it has filling. It is made from generally a sweet dough and is covered in some kind of sweet like cinnamon sugar or powdered sugar or a glaze. And I can intellectually describe a donut to you. It's probably 3 to 4 inches wide. They can be served warm or cold. The fillings are made out of cream. But until you taste the donut for yourself, you only have an approximation of what a donut looks like. It's kind of like reading a book and imagining what the character looks like, and then you finally read them. I mean, maybe I keep describing myself as a very tanned woman with glasses and so on and so forth, but that just gives you an idea of maybe that's a certain color, whatever you're considering tan. And there's so many different hairstyles out there. Maybe you're somebody that's visual and you need to see me. Maybe you're somebody that has the gift of being able to touch someone and get an idea of what that looks like to you. Perhaps you are very good if someone is very specific about visualizing something that you can get an idea of what that looks like. So that's kind of where I think that gap is. It's a good way to describe it is describing a donut versus tasting the donut. And that's if your taste buds haven't been compromised. Let's be real. A lot of people are still experiencing long COVID. My beloved peanuts. I think I'm finally just starting to be able to taste peanut butter again, and it tastes like peanut, not cardboard. So I think that's a really good way to describe that gap between knowing something and comprehending and understanding it. So, what could help us bridge that gap? What are some ways we could bridge the gap? And we get Circe, which is apparently it's a water bug Pokemon, and it's a little bug. It's 4 legs. It's blue with little red cheeks, and it has an acorn hat, and it is on a lake, I guess, and there's some ferns and around it. And so Surskit is very sensitive to its surroundings. It kind of skims along the water. So think about agility. It when it senses danger, it also secretes like a serum that warns away the birds. And it's kind of interesting because the Simisear also lets embers come up off its head. So when we're trying to think about experiencing something and skimming along the surface, this almost seems counterintuitive to me. And then I'm noticing that Surskit has a shadow on the water. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little, its shadow is under itself. And I think that's where we need to focus is to not pay attention to the surface levels, but also look at what's underneath. So it's a combination of being nimble, but also pausing and having a light touch on a situation. Like we're exploring new grounds and going cautiously so you don't necessarily sink all the way might be a way to approach it. It's taking tiny little steps towards this better understanding. Because if you just shove the whole donut in your mouth, you can't enjoy it because now you're probably choking as well. So I think Surskit is kind of reminding me to sip at life, to not gulp things down, but to go lightly and experience the flavor. It's kind of like when you swirl wine and you smell it, or if you're really inhaling your coffee before you drink it and identifying those notes and undertones. So what if we approached life like a wine tasting? Granted, I just saw, I don't remember what comedian was making fun because the flavors are like earthy and they're like it's dirt. You're describing dirt as a flavor. But what if we took the time to sample the moment and experience even the simple things? So right now I am sitting. There's the sounds of cars in the distance going by. There's also the sound of my fan. I feel supported by my seat. There is the slightest bit of air passing through. Have a lot of tension in my neck. And when we're thinking about pausing, what is that telling me? I noticed I hadn't breathed since I've been doing this episode today. And all of these things are really calming. It's nice where I am that bits of the outside, even though it's things like cars, are coming through as far as the sound, but also underneath that, there is a cooling sensation from the cool weather that we're having today. And I recognize that I am perfectly comfortable here and now because there's a lot of things happening in the world right now where people are undergoing some horrible circumstances. And I'm kind of expanding my awareness that that's also part of what's happening right now. It doesn't have to be the only thing happening right now. And perhaps Surskit can help us navigate how deep we want to sink into certain situations. I can impact my surroundings here right now. And on an individual level, I can maybe impact some of the things that are happening around the world, whether it be writing a letter or going to join a protest or sending an email or making a phone call or checking in on people. Those are things that I can also do. And I can be thankful for having this space to do all these things. So when we're talking about understanding and comprehending, it might be just taking a moment to be still and skim our lives, exploring the different aspects and areas and ways to experience life. And I think it's kind of cool that Surskit has four legs. There's just being, maybe one of them is the head, the heart, the guts, but also as a being in a space. There, I don't know where the quote is from about we could be humans having a spiritual experience or spiritual beings having a human experience. I think it could be a both and. We live in these skin sacks, and there's so much we don't understand about ourselves or how our mind works. I know I find all these weird little things on Instagram, and if it's true, it's really interesting how crows kind of have some kind of group network And if somebody, like they did an experiment where they had somebody wearing a mask go and harass the crows. And eventually, in this relatively large area of the city, if anybody wore that mask, the crows would come and harass them. And when I'm still reading about the fungi, you decide how you want to call it, and these enormous networks that are kind of the embody of both and, because the network is extensive, it can send things in two directions at once. It is to be so vast and aware of all that, yet present in the smallest circumstances. I think that's another way to our world, the here and now in the moment. Yes, we are our immediate circumstances, but recognizing that our choices, sorry, our choices and decisions do ripple outwards into our communities. So I think it's a both and situation. It can help close a gap. And for me right now, the biggest thing is just taking the moment to explore all of these avenues, as well as the shadow that's underneath the surface. And going forward, we get another grass energy Pokemon that's kind of reinforcing the theme today about being present, recognizing our part in our world, whether it's our immediate circumstances and the fact that our actions and ideas do ripple outwards. This idea of the butterflies flapping in the Amazon is causing a hurricane, or it could be causing joy. Taking a sip of water. There's so many. I love these videos that have somebody does a kind deed, and then because they did a kind deed, somebody else does a kind deed, and then it circles round years from now, and that person that you did this thing for, being your surgeon or something like that. And that just makes me happier. I i i like to imagine that life is like that, and people are like that, that people are good people, and we're not we're not all monsters. It's just people devoid of their that connection that we've been talking about with our humanity and our world at large. So if you're still here and you don't have questions in the comments, I'm going to use a different deck today. I'm going to go with more traditional things, and it is the full moon today, and we'll work on this together, and maybe you'll have a different interpretation. This questions come from Biddy Tarot. I think her name's Bridget. I like her, and that was an unofficial mentor of mine, because she's always been just trust your intuition. You don't have to read books and come up with meanings. I do find that if you're getting into this, the books or the info cards can help you with questions, but they're no answers. And how you look at something one day will differ versus how you look at it another day. So we'll start with the first question is for this new moon, this new, um, I guess, spiritual month, a full moon. Sorry, it's the fullness, it's the peak. I'm not really into all of that, but I am fascinated by the moon, especially when the full moon is there. I will stop everything like, ooh, the moon. So, what can I offer to my family and friends to be of higher service during this season? And have a looks like a young girl with like a deep brunette, a reddish brunette hair, and she has her bags packed and an oxen, and is walking along a path, So this person is carrying a lot of things and has come a long way and is going somewhere with all this. 10 is usually associated with the end of a cycle and the beginning of something new. And energetically, there's been a lot of intention. For me, like I have been doing live every day for this past month, and that was definitely a lot of energy. And it looks like she's at the end of a journey and has all of these bags and um, what I can't think of the word, and things she's collected on her travels and is, for me, coming home. So, what can I offer my friends and family to be of highest service is all the things that I have been learning is to share that with other people. That's what comes to mind for me at the end of the beginning of, because the moon is at its brightest point and then it starts winding down until you get a new moon. So that's what comes to mind when I reflect on this, coming at the end of something, and because I'm coming to the end of these lives and reflecting on what have I learned from this and what can I share with others, which is what I've been trying to do with these lives, which is what I am doing. I mean, if people don't have to share, that's not my problem. It is the right people. I have full confidence that the right people will catch the replay, or it will just pop up. Who knows? Maybe even years from now, somebody will be like, "What's this?" And it resonates with them. So that's the first thing that comes to mind for me when I think about that particular question. And then, what areas of my life might benefit from creating order? So many. So many. It would be not having, 5 rolls of wax paper and not having any parchment paper. This card is the Two of Swords. It is a dark haired woman in what looks like a desert. There are, speaking of the crows, there are two crows kind of tangling in her hair and they're pulling at her. So this is the swords and that they're around her head. So this is around, to me, thoughts. And at any point, and this was from, I think her name is Jessie Janelle. I'm so bad at names. She's also a tarot coach. Very good. You should check it out. I like the idea that when she looks at this in the traditional Rider Waite deck, that she can always put down the swords. But this one, she's not holding swords. These are more metaphysical, the crows. But she can always take off the blindfold. That's a choice. And on her arms is like a little tattoo of some kind of scales. And oftentimes we're just kind of running around blindfolded. We're maybe willfully shutting ourselves off from the hard truths in our lives. And this has been I know for me, this has been a constant struggle when we're talking about creating order. It's so many delayed decisions, and they're just kind of floating around my head. They don't have a place to land because I'm not taking action on them. So for me personally, going through like insurance papers, getting taxes ready, continuing to um, do my spring cleaning, right? It's almost that time in a lot of traditions where spring cleaning is the start of religious festivals. I mean, you do spring cleaning for Lunar New Year. It is part of the Passover to make sure you don't have any leaven in your life. I honestly don't know how that could potentially tie into Ramadan just because I'm not as familiar with it. But that is kind of what comes to mind. Detangling, getting these crows off your back by dealing with them, taking off taking off the, just open your eyes, be willing to see what is happening, and that you do have a choice in here. This person, because they are covering their eyes, are refusing to deal with and interact with, I guess, what seems to be menacing. And sometimes when you really assess it, then you have a better idea and it's not as bad as you thought. I'm drinking some water. So if you look at this literally in creating order, it might be your to-do list. And if it lives in your head, it's absolutely going to be overwhelming versus if you write it down and then you can prioritize what's important. If you check your pantry or really take an inventory, a stock of what you have, going forward, it might be easier. And that takes some time, right? To create a list of the things you have and keep that updated. But that's, I mean, that's just one way of going it, or setting yourself up so you can easily see what's missing, what's going to expire soon. There's lots of different ways to deal with that. And it could also be, if we look at it in relation to the card prior, you're coming back from this long journey. Sorry, you're coming back from this long journey, and the people there are just flying around you. What would you do? And all, how'd it go? And would you bring me? And that kind of thing could be a part of that situation as well. So that's another way that you can think about it. And I'm going to benefit from working hard in the next 6 months. And wow, another cycle. This is the 10 of Swords. And this one we have a young lady in an orange dress, kind of has honey brown hair, walking in the away. I mean, her back is turned to us, and there are birds around her. So this is perhaps the end of a cycle in a way of thinking, and working hard on those thoughts and that mindset. It will absolutely benefit me, be more likely to put myself out there. I put myself out here every day for the past 24 days. This is day 24. And as I continue to do this and reflect on this, I'm picking up new insights as well. So this is the end of how I want to think about certain things and exploring new ways of thinking, venturing on into the unknown. The sky is very expansive. And for me, recognizing that I'm not on this journey alone, I'm on this journey with other people in my community. We're going towards something together. So those are other things that come to mind when I reflect on this. And you might have a different understanding, again, if you're following along or if you're doing this with your own intuitive tools. And how can I limit clutter in my physical space? The I don't remember what, I don't do astrology that much, but I think Virgo is, it's not like Libra, but it's definitely about, when I watch Instagram videos, these are people that are very organized and they a lot of clutter. So what could help with that? And ha ha ha. There's a 5 of Wands. So this is when you're scattering your energy all over the place. There are 5 people, and there is a like a sculpture, or a structure. That's the word I'm looking for. A structure made up of these sticks, and they're all climbing and reaching in different directions. Some people are falling, and they're all trying to reach this kind of flaming comet thing up there. They're aspiring to something. It's very confusing, and all the energy is scattered. And I just imagine, what if they work together? Could they arrange these sticks differently? What if we weren't in competition and we could collaborate? I had a meeting with a really awesome group, National Sisterhood Coalition, last night. And these are some of the things that we discussed. What are we doing as a group going forward? And Karen Fleshman, one of the co-founders in Future King, is talking about healing and building these relationships. So that's a good place to live, is kind of either stop scattering your energy. I know that's easier said than done. Yesterday we talked about there was a Pokemon gun. I forget what it does, but the idea to me was about being very focused on something. So arranging those if that's possible, and the people in your life, maybe they can help you. In fact, this morning I was thinking about getting the kids involved in some of the projects that I personally want to work on. But I have kids. You might have some colleagues, and finally, look, we're going to go through that hidden supply closet of do, see what we have, and work on this together. So that's what comes to mind when I reflect on that one, and you might have a different understanding of it. What can I do to better support my mental clarity? And this one we get the two wands, which is really interesting because in how this spread is laid out, this is underneath the two of swords. So it's kind of like that. And again, this is a choice about decisions, and one is energy. So where do I want to direct all that energy? Do I want to look forward? Do I want to stand back? So this is a lady sitting in a room. There's a little globe and a picture of a van. There is a giant stick up against the wall, a simple string of, looks like lights. I can't tell if they're lit. And she's looking out into an orange sky longingly. So it's deciding, what does mental clarity look like for you? And I mean, she gives a good example of just sitting, being still until you know where you want to go. Yeah, exploration is fun. When I go to a new city, it's nice to drive around, but I like to have a framework, anchor points of, I for sure want to do this, and use that as a guide and flesh out the rest of it with at least some guiding force. So when we're thinking about mental clarity, you can explore with your thoughts what's important to you. There's lots of things around choices and where we want to direct our energy. And since this is under the Two of Swords card with the lady and the birds flying around, where specifically are we focusing our thoughts, and being willing to be open, to explore instead of shutting down. In an earlier session, I was telling you all about just how often when things get difficult, the zhoop happens and I just shut it down. That is not helpful. It's about as helpful as the double steel reinforced concrete block around our hearts. Yeah, you keep people out, but you also um, you don't let things get in as well. So thinking about what is important to you and what you want to get clear about would be helpful as we approach this next cycle. And how can I best support healthy emotional expression? How can I best support healthy emotional expression? And this we have the Knight of Pentacles. So we have a man, a man with a shield on his back, and he's walking, and all of these kind of shield mandalas are following him, as well as his horse. The horse is bridled in black livery. Yeah. And they're walking on the grass, and the sky is blue. Pentacles are usually associated with work or money. So how can I best support healthy emotional expression is walking away. Sometimes it is to not engage in situations, letting the chips fall where they may. I'm just reflecting on what else comes to mind because I think it's important to express those feelings. This is a case where what you resist persists does come to mind. And if you keep, like, let's say you're mad and you keep pushing that down, then it will come out probably at the worst possible time. And you get really upset over something that would normally not have bothered you had you expressed it when it was happening. And I think that ties back into, sorry, let the truck go by. I think that ties back into our earlier thing about Surskit, kind of hovering around the surface and being fully aware of your surroundings and your feelings. So maybe you can't have a scream fest, but you can journal. I've definitely just journaled screaming if I couldn't actually scream, because that's also really bad for your throat. And for me, that's a way to have a conversation with yourself. And since there's a horse in the picture, maybe the horse is the feeling following you around, and you don't necessarily need to jump on it and engage with it. But you can acknowledge it's there, it's following you, and ask it what you want, or okay, feeling, where this is where I don't know where you want to go, and kind of having that conversation just by acknowledging it. Okay, I'm really angry right now, or I'm experiencing sadness right now, or some other kind of things, or I'm even experiencing joy, right? There's all kinds of feelings and emotions, and at a certain level, they're fine. But when you pump them up to the nth degree, joy can become mania, which is, there is such a thing as too much joy. There is such a thing of people dying of pleasure, right? Overdoses or other kinds of situations. When people engage in addictive behavior, that is where those positive things are now out of control. And when we look at sadness, it turn into depression for some people. So emotions just are. And some of it is the story that we ascribe to the feelings. And I think it's really interesting that we started with Wands, which is, for us, for me anyway, somebody coming back after a long journey. And we're ending with the Knight of Pentacles, which is somebody going on a new journey out there, walking away to something else. So I thought that was interesting for this month. So as you go through the rest of the month, or this cycle, as we're at the peak of a lunar cycle and it's diminishing, it's also thinking about what are the things that you may want to let go or to shrink in your life now that today, if you want to reflect on what is being illuminated in your life that you perhaps would like to change, and recognize that you do have to engage with your life. You do have to, you know, I don't really, I don't like these words. So I'm really trying not to use ableist language. So engage in your life instead of avoiding it. That's the simplest thing. The Two of Swords card, this person is avoiding birds through physical barriers. And we put up a lot of barriers in our life to other people. We are distracted a lot. Showing the Five of Wands again. There's a lot of distractions that, when we should buckle down and do the work, we're distracting ourselves with videos or social media feeds or just TV shows or binge watching, procrastinating, as Yinka Owala talks about, instead of doing the right things, doing the things that we need to get done. And going to recognize what those are if we don't sit and reflect and get intentional about where we want to go. I just see a lot of people on journeys when I look at this as a whole. Some are coming and going, and we have these cycles as well, and they kind of balance each other out. And we keep going. There's you get to an end of something, but there's always a new beginning. Like we it sounds simple. You come home and you don't stay there. Eventually you go outside again. Home is a respite, but it's not your final destination as we engage in our world. Even the supplies. I mean, I'm just coming from what is generally found in a home would be shelter, food, clothing, water, and those kind of things. But unless you have an amazing garden, generally you go out to replenish and or to engage with other humans because every human in your life doesn't live in your home. So home is a respite, but it's not the final destination. I don't know if there is a final destination because we're always evolving. Even on a cellular level, your cells are turning over. In 7 years, on a molecular level, I will be a completely different person. It's like the ship of Theseus. As we go on in this life, old parts of us fall off and we replace it, and we still look relatively similar as we go through these journey, but we take on attitudes, different mindsets. I absolutely am not the same person I am now than I was 20 years ago. I was really very dogmatic 20 years ago. I don't think I was open to new beliefs at all. And I like who I'm becoming, who I am unveiling, because I do think that we have a core, and this is just conjecture, but I think we have a core personality. And some parts of me have not changed. I have been always curious. I have always been somebody to ask questions. I've always been somebody that is compassionate about other people and care about other people in my life. Where have been the gaps is maybe what are the impact of my actions to other people. And so that's an area that I personally am working on. You might be working on something different. Maybe your compassion game is strong and you've overdone it, and now it's time to focus on yourself. Or perhaps you've lived in a bubble and you need to expand your world and understand your role in the community and the world at large. Yeah, even though in the grand scheme of things, Earth is but a speck. If your world was the size of the screen that you're looking at right now, I don't think even a pixel fully represents how tiny we are in the grand universal scheme of things. However, we don't live in a grand things where we're pixels. We have these physical bodies and they are very much impacted by our external environment. We do have to live in this world, whether we're physical beings having spiritual experiences or spiritual beings having a human experience. There is still an experience. And our choices, our decisions, where we want to expend our energy determine some of the outcomes, not all of them. You can't stop the crows from coming around you, and just recognize that we're not on this journey alone. There are some people that are solitary. I only see one truly solitary figure in all of these cards today, and this is the lady looking at the Two of Wands lady that's sitting outside. But we don't know if she's all alone in that space, what's outside, what's she looking at. Could be another horse, or maybe, I mean, you can use your imagination. Maybe she's watching the night walk away. That's one way to interpret these things as well, and wondering about her next step. Maybe that's the end of something. No clue. You can use your own imagination to tell the story as you see fit, using intuitive tools to guide you to make a new story. And so, my friends, with that, I think we're going to wrap up today's Ask Me Almost Anything. I don't see any questions in the comments. I'm just making sure I have these cards. I would like to journal on them later. And we'll close it out by going ahead and taking in a deep breath. And exhale. Deep breath in. And exhale. Deep breath in. And exhale. And again, just take a moment to be fully present in this moment. Yeah, we all have things to do, but just reflect, if you wish this, on what comes up for you in the next few hours, because I'm going to do another one tomorrow. Tomorrow's live is same time, 7:30. And please share in the comments, hashtag team replay, what came up to you, what comes to mind for you. Would love to share your fellow additional insights, and we can collaborate asynchronously but together about this way forward in nurturing ourselves and our environment, our community. Thank you all for joining, and have a fantastic rest of the day.